Does a 1,000 euro sewing machine sews better than 100 euro sewing machine? I tested them both by sewing a pair of jeans, and the results will surprise you. The machines I tested in today's video is Brother CS10s, which is a computerized beginner-friendly sewing machine which retails below 200 euros, and straight stitch advanced sewing machine Brother PQ1600S sewing machine. I tested both of these machines by making a pair of jeans. One half is made using this machine, and the other half is made using this machine to test and see how both machines will perform in the same conditions. Same thick denim fabric, same thick thread, same jean size 100 needle, and of course, same seams. I'll be reviewing test results in 5 different points. We're going to talk about stitch quality, ease of use and adjustability, versatility and special features, durability and reliability, and the value for money. Big thanks for Brother for partnering on this video and providing the machines for the review. So let's begin by the most important point: stitch quality. Whenever we're sewing any project, the most seams are done using straight stitch. This is why whenever you're choosing your sewing machine, this is the stitch that you should be paying the most attention to. From the test, we can see that both machines can handle sewing with thick thread and multiple denim layers, forming strong seams. On inside seams or flat felt seams, where there are few fabric layers and no switching between layer count in the seam, both machines have the same stitching results. However, let's zoom in a little bit closer to the top stitch and analyze stitch by stitch. We can see that a beginner-level sewing machine has a few stitch length inconsistencies, especially when moving between different counts of fabric layers in the same seam, while advanced sewing machine maintains the same length stitch throughout the seam, even on difficult to sew parts. Now realistically, you're probably not going to do the contrasting thread top stitching that often, and even if you do, no one is going to look at the stitch length so up close. However, this test is very good indication on how well each of these machines can handle working on tricky projects. By the way, this is a very good test to remember whenever you're choosing your next sewing machine. So very often sellers tend to advertise how many layers a sewing machine can sew, and they especially like to emphasize denim layers. However, truthfully, even a beginner sewing machine will be able to handle lots of layers of denim if they are just stacked on top of each other. So instead, what you want to do is you want to test how well a sewing machine sews through seam connections and how well it handles the transition from a few layers to multiple layers. This will give you a far better indication on how well the machine handles different fabrics and if it produces the stitch quality that you're aiming for. So talking about the stitch quality, both the beginner and advanced sewing machines were able to form strong, durable seams even when sewing through multiple layers of thick denim. However, advanced sewing machine was able to maintain a consistent stitch length even when sewing through multiple layers of denim and difficult to sew parts. Now let's talk about ease of use and adjustability. One big benefit of advanced sewing machines is that they usually have a lot of adjustability options, allowing you to perfectly fine-tune the stitch. So let's go through a few features of this sewing machine that I observed during the test. Threading system of PQ1700S sewing machine is very similar to those of the industrial sewing machines. This point was particularly helpful when sewing jeans, as it has a thick thread threading option and more sensitive tension disc, which allow to sew a well-balanced seam using a tension setting 4 out of 5, while using a beginner-level sewing machine. To really balance the seam, I had to use maximum tension setting 9 out of 9, which means that I no longer had any room for any adjustments if I would have needed them. So beginner-friendly machine is much easier to thread, however, the advanced sewing machine does have more threading options for that perfect stitch. Another interesting feature worth mentioning is that the feed dogs in this particular sewing machine are adjustable height. So if you're working with very lightweight fabrics, you are able to lower the feed dogs, and when you're working with very heavyweight fabrics, you are able to make them higher so that they are moving the fabric better through the presser foot. You're also able to very easily adjust the pressure of the presser foot, again fine-tuning the settings for different weight fabrics. And also talking about the straight stitch, the PQ1700S sewing machine has a stitch length up to 7 millimeters, while in most domestic sewing machines, including this one, you have the maximum stitch length of 5 millimeters. In my test, I was sewing all the seams using 4.5 millimeter stitch length. From these features, we can see that compared to the beginner level machine, advanced sewing machine like PQ1700S will likely have more adjustability points, which will allow you to fine-tune perfect settings for the straight stitch quality. Moving further into the review, we have versatility and specialized features. Of course, when we're talking about advanced sewing machines that are costing 1,000 euros or more, usually we have a few special features in them. So when sewing my jeans, I was able to test different features of both sewing machines to see which of the features I actually use and like. So one feature that I really like in advanced sewing machines is a knee lift or the presser foot auto lift at the end of the seam. This feature was especially handy when I was sewing the back pockets of my jeans and I had 10 pivot points in each pocket. Having a knee lift on this particular sewing machine allowed me to always keep my hands on the project, while in this one I had to stop at each pivot point and manually raise the presser foot. This doesn't sound like a very big inconvenience, but once you get used to that knee lift or the auto presser foot lift, it's very difficult to switch back to the manually raised foot. Additional very interesting feature is the large sewing area. So this machine, you can see that it has a much larger space right here compared to sewing machine here, and it also comes with an extension table. These two features were especially helpful when I was sewing the flat felt seams on the jeans inseam. Because of that very large sewing space, I was able to position very comfortably my entire detail that I was stitching, while on this particular sewing machine, because we have far less space right here and here we don't have any extension table, it was a little bit uncomfortable to work because the fabric wanted to slide off, and here when I was sewing the flat felt seam I had to roll it up to fit it in. When working on projects like jeans, sewing machine weight also plays a big role because advanced sewing machines usually weigh far more than beginner sewing machines, and because of the weight they add more stability when you're sewing, especially if you want to sew at the higher speed. So for comparison, this Brother PQ1600S weighs about 11 kilos, while this Brother CS10s weighs about half of that and it weighs about 6 kilos. Now, of course, if you're looking for a portable machine, this one is much more easier to just grab and go, but the higher weight machine will add more stability and more comfort when sewing. Another feature worth mentioning is speed. Now, I have to be honest, speed is the very last feature that I look when I'm looking at the sewing machines because I usually don't sew very fast, especially if I'm sewing top stitch seams like in these jeans. However, if speed is important for you, advanced sewing machines are of course much faster compared to beginner-friendly sewing machines. So this particular sewing machine sews at 1,500 stitches per minute, while this one sews at 850 stitches per minute. For me personally, speed is not as important. However, if you are looking for a speedy machine, this is a good feature to remember to look at. So one more very interesting feature about this particular sewing machine is the presser foot. So you will notice that it has a very slim industrial-like presser foot. Now personally, and this is my own personal preference, I do like this type of presser foot more than the universal presser foot. Simply because whenever I'm doing top stitch seam, I feel that I'm able to achieve better results and position my fabric better with a slimmer presser foot. However, this is my own personal preference and I just personally like a slim presser foot a bit more. Additional thing worth mentioning, and that's PQ1600S is a straight stitch machine, meaning that when I needed to do a buttonhole for my jeans, I had to use this sewing machine to do the task. This Brother CS10s sewing machine comes with several one-step buttonholes, so I was able to create a buttonhole stitch, which I wouldn't have been able to complete with just this machine because, again, this is a straight stitch only machine. So to summarize this point, advanced sewing machines usually come with more features that allow you for more customization and make sewing a little bit more easy. Now let's talk about durability and reliability. So while making my pair of jeans, I had no issues with either of these machines. The thread didn't break and I had no jamming. The only time I had slight issues was when I was making the buttonholes on this sewing machine and I was using a thicker thread in the bobbin. Now because I was making the test buttonhole stitch on a scrap of fabric before doing it on my final garment, I was able to catch on that issue, and when I replaced the thread in the bobbin with a regular all-purpose thread, the machine made a beautiful buttonhole stitch. In this part, it's also worth mentioning that advanced sewing machines usually have metal frames that, of course, adds up to the price, but also extends the durability of the sewing machine. In case of Brother 1600S, we also have a strong vertical rotary hook, and we also have metal bobbins, so this setup is very similar to those of the industrial sewing machines. However, here I want to note that if you take good care of your beginner sewing machine, you will use it for multiple years. So to summarize this chapter, both sewing machines were able to handle a project like jeans. However, with the beginner's level sewing machine, remember not to push it to the limit with every project that you work on, while with the advanced sewing machine, you will be able to tackle more difficult projects more often and with more ease. And the final chapter, value for money. So as a reminder, Brother CS10s computerized sewing machine is a little bit less than 200 euros, while the advanced straight stitch sewing machine Brother PQ1600S will cost a bit more than 1000 euros. After the test, in my opinion, both of these machines are great choices in their respective price categories. CS10s is a great choice for beginners with 40 stitches and lots of options for one-step automatic buttonholes. It can handle thick thread and thick fabrics, so you will be able to sew even projects like jeans. However, you also have to adjust your expectations and remember that sometimes in some especially tricky parts, the machine may need additional help. If you're planning on working on projects like jeans very often, then an advanced sewing machine like PQ1600S is a great robust option to consider. It's a straight stitch machine, meaning that its entire focus is how to create that perfect straight stitch quality. It gives you tons of adjustment points and lots of features for comfort. In case of both of these machines, you really get a lot of value for the money you pay. Which one is a better choice for you definitely depends on your budget and on projects that you plan on working. Sewing is all about the skill, and you're able to create beautiful garments even using a beginner-friendly sewing machine. So this is everything I wanted to talk in today's video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on beginner and advanced sewing machines. Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!